Yo, what's up chefs, it's Vinny and welcome to the POE University. This is a video series where I'm going to attempt to break down some of the game's more complex systems and mechanics in a comprehensive but easy to digest way in 10 minutes or less, so let's get started. Today's topic is going to be about endgame progression. Starting off from ground zero, as soon as you finish the campaign, you should find your character waking up in this strange place called the Ziggurat Refuge. And the absolute first two things you should do is open up your passive tree to make sure you have 24 weapon set passive points, and also make sure you have 100 base spirit, not including any gear or additions. And if you have both of those things and you're confident that you grabbed all of the other permanent bonuses littered throughout the campaign, then great, you're ready to move forward into the endgame. If not, then this guide on max roll will take care of you, and you can find it linked down in the description. Once you've got all the bonuses, you can go ahead and make your way back to the Ziggurat Refuge by speaking with the Hooded One in King's March, which is the central hub of Act 4 currently. Now that you've got your permanent bonuses taken care of, the first thing you're going to want to do is speak with Alva and then Doriani, who's going to give you this square cookie cutter thing he calls a waystone, but we like to call them maps.
We don't do that.
Next step is to take your map over to the aptly named map device, and when you open it up, you will see your atlas, which is the heart and soul of PoE 2's endgame. Almost everything you do from now on, excluding a few niche forms of content, will be extensions of your atlas. At this point, your atlas might look a little bit different than mine because I've already done some exploring this league, but that's okay. On your first character of each league, everyone starts off with a small little visible zone, and everything else is covered in fog. Within that visible zone, you should be able to see the Ziggurat Refuge, which is where you can start to branch out and complete maps via these connected map nodes, and then you can also click this home icon if you ever want to quickly find your way back to your starting point. Additionally, you should also be able to see this teleporter looking thing called the Realm Gate, and this is how you're going to be able to access Pinnacle content later in the game, which is something we'll also touch on later in this video. And finally, you should be able to see a corrupted zone somewhere very close by, and every corrupted zone you come across will always have a corrupted nexus located somewhere in the center. This is where you should start heading to first. At this point, I'd recommend just doing all your maps with only 2 modifiers, except for the corrupted nexus, which will require you to use a 4-mod map, and you can clearly see the number of modifiers by hovering over a map while holding Alt. The general rule of thumb here is that each modifier you add to your maps, up to a maximum of 6, 3 prefixes, 3 suffixes, will increase both the difficulty and the rewards you receive. And this is part of what we like to call juicing your maps, which is a future topic that will be covered in this series. Moving on though, at the end of completing your corrupted nexus map, a corrupted mini-boss is going to spawn, and he'll reward you with a quest item that gives you 5 atlas skill points. You can then access your atlas skill tree by pressing Ctrl+U. The atlas skill tree is a way for you to scale the rewards you receive during the endgame. You can get a total of 40 skill points for this section here in the middle. 30 of those points are acquired through completing corrupted nexuses, so you'll need to do 6 of those, and then the final 10 points are acquired via completing 5 different unique maps, each of which will give you 2 points. Everything here in the middle will be directly related to your default maps. Some of these nodes are more generic improvements to your maps overall, which tend to be what people prioritize first, and then there are sections that scale specific types of mechanics that you can encounter in maps, such as essences, Asmeri spirits, strongboxes, shrines, and finally rogue exiles. The separate sections around the outside of the tree that aren't directly connected to the middle are tied to the different types of pinnacle mechanics / encounters that are currently available in the endgame. All of these mechanics effectively have 2 sides to them. On the one hand, they can be added into your maps to provide additional content and rewards, and on the other hand, they have specific pinnacle encounters which are accessed via the Realm Gate that usually involve a boss with multiple difficulties, which is also the way you unlock all of your final 6 points in each of the different trees, with your first 2 points being given to you for free. I've included a link down below to some good example atlas skill trees that are always going to be a safe bet, but feel free to experiment around with the different mechanics / content that you actually enjoy the most. So, now that you understand the atlas skill tree and how to get the points, the first thing I'd recommend you do in the endgame is to go around and hunt down your first 20 to 30 points at least, because that's where you're going to get most of the value, and it makes sense to take care of this first before really trying to juice up your maps. While doing this, you should also be aiming to increase the tier of maps you're completing, roughly in line with your level. Feel free to go up or down if you need to. Each additional tier on the map is going to increase the monster level by 1, starting at level 65 for a tier 1 map, ending at level 79 for a tier 15 map. This is going to ensure that you are continuing to get good amounts of experience, but also allow you to start building up a supply of higher tier maps, which is what you'll ultimately want to be using when you start juicing things up. Speaking of juicing things up, during your process of roaming around looking for corrupted zones and unique maps to get your Atlas skill tree points, you will probably come across a plethora of these structures called towers. These are likely going to be getting removed or significantly changed in future content updates, but for the time being, they are an essential component of juicing your maps, so we do need to go ahead and explain them. Towers are effectively just like any other map. However, upon completing them, you will then be allowed to socket up to 3 tablets into the tower that provide bonuses to all of the surrounding maps. The number of tablets you are allowed to socket in depends on the number of modifiers that were present on the map you used to do the tower. Additionally, by using a higher tier map to complete the tower, you can get up to a 100% increased radius of the maps that get affected by the bonuses coming from the tablets, which is one of the reasons why increasing the tier of your maps while you hunt down those Atlas skill tree points is so important. When it comes to tablets, you're going to be getting a lot of these as you complete maps, and they come in a lot of different variations. And I'll be covering them in more detail in a future episode that will be dedicated on how to juice your maps, but for now, let me save you a lot of time. Now, this is going to be an oversimplification because this isn't the primary topic of the video, but one of the most important things about towers and tablets is to ensure that you are never using tablets with a bad prefix modifier. The general consensus is that the best prefix is increased quantity of items by a decently large margin, with increased rarity of items and number of rare monsters also being decent secondary options, but you should only go for those if you're on a serious budget. The suffix is not particularly important, and as for the type of tablets, a triple combo of Breach, Irradiated, and either Ritual or Expedition in the 3rd slot is always going to be a safe bet. Beyond that, you should be trying to find sections of the Atlas that have sets of 2 or sometimes, rarely, 3 towers that overlap, and it is in these areas when amplified by good tablets that you can just make massive amounts of currency. Now that you understand the foundation of towers and tablets, let's go ahead and move on to the final chapter of the video, which is going to be Pinnacle encounter progression. When you encounter and complete Pinnacle mechanics in your maps, you're going to receive splinters that are tied to each of them. Once you've collected enough of these splinters, you can take them over to the Realm Gate and attempt the respective Pinnacle encounter. If you're successful, then you'll receive a quest item that awards you with 2 passive points for that specific part of the Atlas tree. You can then do this 2 more times at higher difficulties for each of the Pinnacle encounters to get all of the possible passive points, which will then tie back into improving the rewards you receive from your maps. So, to summarize everything we've discussed so far, your first step in endgame progression is going to be to get a majority of your Atlas skill tree points. Following that, you can then begin to work towards your Pinnacle Atlas points by adding Pinnacle mechanics to your maps via towers and tablets, which will ultimately reward you with splinters and allow you to attempt their respective encounters to get your Pinnacle passive points. Then finally, once you have most, if not all of your basic Atlas tree points and have started working towards getting the Pinnacle Atlas points that you're interested in, it's time to start really juicing up your maps to make currency, which will fund you to upgrade your character so you can juice your maps even more to make even more currency, and the cycle goes on and on. Remember, overlapped towers and tablets with a good prefix modifier, increased quantity of items, are the key here, and there are obviously additional layers to juicing your maps, such as making them delirious via paranoia instilled emotions, adding a desecrated prefix, etc., but I will discuss these in much more detail in a future episode. Quick disclaimer here at the end is that throughout this entire process of endgame progression, you should be, and frankly you will need to be, making improvements to the overall power of your character, because that is the core of what an ARPG is all about. Some of this will happen naturally via leveling up and getting more passive points, while another massive part of this will happen by upgrading your items either through trading or crafting.
And with that being said, if you feel like I missed anything, keep in mind it's very likely I'll cover it in a future episode. As always, hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later, chefs.